Christy Stiers was driving home one night, alone.
I at first thought it was another car, but I looked out towards the back of me, and I noticed there was no car in back of me, and I was adjusting the mirror, and I noticed an object in the sky. It was flying behind my car, and I kept watching it in my rearview mirror, and eventually it went over to where I could see it looking out the window. It kept following me, driving down the road. And then I made a right-hand turn, and this object made a right-hand turn. And by this point, I was getting really scared.
She drove into the driveway, ran up to the front door, came flying in the house, and said something was following her. And then when she told me it was above her car, I didn't know what she was talking about.
When the lights returned to the Stiers' home months later, Nadia's husband Gary shot this amazing UFO footage.
It was a feeling of great excitement because these things were happening right before your eyes. You didn't know really what these lights were, what was happening.
Gary called 911 to tell the police about what he saw.
And within a matter of minutes, Officer Callie arrived along with 3 state policemen. And as I taped, they stood alongside of me with their handheld radios in my front yard.
I didn't believe it initially when I received the call that there would be anything of substance to that I would see. Immediately upon exiting my police vehicle, I looked up in the air and I saw 4 or 5 bright objects up in the air.
The police department called the local airport to see if there was anything on their radar.
We looked out the window over towards where he was talking about, and sure enough, there were some lights out there.
But nothing showed up on the radar screen.
I felt that there was possibly a problem with the radar system. Shortly thereafter, he contacted me back and said that they checked it again, and there's nothing up there.
A few nights later, Gary Stiers encountered more lights in the night.
It was just about dusk, and as we were there up by the power lines, all of a sudden, these objects started coming up out of the treetops.
They were just everywhere. Seeing wherever we turned, there was another one. I just remembered not hearing a sound.
As always, there were those who did not believe that anyone saw a UFO.
All I know is that we taped some unusual lights and objects in the sky. The night of January 8th did happen, and I wasn't the only person that saw these things. And all I can say about the tape is that it speaks for itself.
Cherry Creek, a small rural town in New York, where a UFO sighting changed Harold Butcher's life forever. Harold was 16, working in this barn.
As he was working in the barn, he noticed that the radio he was listening to became staticky and blanked out. He had been listening to music, and there was a glow in the sky. He ran to the window to see what was happening and saw this gigantic object descending.
2 groups soon arrived on the scene. One was Project Blue Book, the special Air Force unit that investigated UFO sightings. The other was NICAP, a civilian group that investigated Project Blue Book.
And NICAP sent one of our investigation teams to the scene.
NICAP's members included scientists and retired military personnel.
NICAP came into existence because the Air Force was being very secretive about UFOs, and it was felt that a high-level civilian group could maybe pry loose some information. We were basically adversarial. The Air Force, we felt, was hiding information, and we were trying to get information out.
Activists would follow Project Blue Book into the field and find eyewitnesses and information the Air Force missed, or maybe didn't want to reveal.
The Air Force system in Blue Book was to label reports in one of 3 ways. Either it was explained, in which case they would say what they thought it was, an aircraft or a balloon or whatever, or it was unexplained, unknown, they used to say, and the third was insufficient data. It was a very interesting case, and one with multiple evidence, including the electromagnetic effects, the physical traces, the illumination, everything. It was a classic mainline UFO sighting.
Well, it looked like an airplane. It was that big, and when it set in the field, it had 3 legs on it. It looked like 2 turkey platters put together with a roll of rivets around the outside, and it sat there a good 5 minutes, so I got one real good look at it, and I've never seen my animals act the way that these did. because they jumped and kicked and bucked and made all kinds of ungodly noises.
Even stranger was the fate of 2 state troopers who also witnessed the object. They filed a report, then were never heard from again.
They had a lot to lose by reporting this. They were risking their reputation. And for them to come out and actually state that they had seen something like that meant a great deal to me. It indicated to me that something genuine was happening in the area.
Dick Nelson lives next to the butcher farm. On the day of the sighting, he talked to the state troopers.
Well, after the policemen saw it, they had a whole different attitude towards it. They couldn't believe what they saw.
Then the Air Force arrived.
Next thing I know, here come this guy from the Air Force. They had a truckload of guys that taped off the whole area out there.
An Air Force officer started making threats.
I had some pictures of it that I took, and the Air Force took them, and they wouldn't even let me have them. They told me if I had any more pictures and if they come out, I would end up in jail or the nut house, one of the two.
Despite the Air Force's apparent cover-up, they may have left the biggest piece of evidence. They classified the incident as unidentified.
The fact that the Air Force classified this as an unidentified is very interesting and very significant because they were very stingy about doing that. Ordinarily, they would be very happy if they could label a sighting and get rid of it. If it was, even if it was stretching the truth, they would try to explain it as an aircraft or a balloon or strobe lights or something, a meteor.
But the Air Force seemed to do all they could to suppress the truth.
I thought, well, what the hell did I do to deserve this? All these guys coming in telling me that if I don't keep my mouth shut, they're going to throw me in jail.
Coming up, who or what caused the unidentified object seen by crewmen on the USS FDR?
My friends called me to come outside, and we observed a bright light quite high in the sky.
And all of a sudden, a fireball dropped between the upper ship to the lower ship.
Did the military hide the reports of those UFO sightings?
I think they are probably covering up the incidents with the FDR because they're covering up all incidences of UFO sightings.
And we'll wrap it all up for you with our Unex report on Unexplained Mysteries, Real People, Real UFOs. Unexplained Mysteries, Real People, Real UFOs. Many reports of UFOs occur near military air bases. The U.S. aircraft carrier Franklin D. Roosevelt was on maneuvers off the coast of Cuba. Suddenly, a brilliant object appeared.
I saw a bright light at the forward of the bow on the right-hand side, which would be the starboard side.
So I followed these guys up to the flight deck, and we were watching this little object, like a light, that was following our ship. And then it came out of the sky at us.
It looked like a star, but was much brighter. The light tracked at a high speed and came to a stop, altered direction, and accelerated to a high speed, stopped again.
Contrary to Navy procedure, these 3 veterans were not asked to file reports, and there is no record of the sightings. Strangest of all, none of the other men who saw the UFOs can be found. During maneuvers codenamed Operation Mainbrace, there were many UFO sightings. A plane